Here, let's take a look at what's going on in Georgia.
Helping her and to know.
Actually, let me start off here. Let's take a look at what's going on in Georgia from the police.
My name is Sheriff Judge Smith. I'm the sheriff of Bear County Sheriff's Office. We're standing on the campus of Appalachee High School here at Bear County Schools. First and foremost, I want to lift up our community. I want to give our sympathies to our community, our school system, our kids, our parents that had to witness this today. Obviously, what you see behind us is an evil thing today. At about 9:30 this morning, we received the first call that there was an active shooter on this campus. We're not releasing any information as far as injuries, but we have multiple injuries. This is a very, very fluid investigation. It's very early. And I have asked the assistance of the GBI and the agencies here behind me today, and there are multiple agencies that responded this morning to help us and help the sheriff's office. We do have a suspect in custody, and we are asking for your patience as the media to please let us get the facts that we need to make sure we get this right. Again, I've asked the GBI to help us, the sheriff's office, to help us along with this. I know this is not what you want to hear, but I'm not going to answer questions after this is over with. But I wanted to give you the respect and our community respect to let them know what was going on initially. We're in the process of reunifying our students with their parents. Obviously, that's chaotic, but we want to be respectful of them and their privacy as well. I want to thank the state, the federal agencies, the local agencies that showed up today, as you can see.
A very dark piece of data. We've now had 15 times more deaths because of mass shootings than undocumented migrants. 386 mass shooting deaths versus 25 undocumented migrants mass shooting data. Yeah.
The multiple EMS and fire from other agencies that responded today. Again, I ask that you lift up Bear County Schools, lift up Appalachie, lift up our agencies. This is going to take multiple days for us to get answers as to what happened and why this happened.
This is more of a failure of gun control, not the failing of the police first, though. Yes, both are at fault. Yeah, of course it's a failure of gun control, a lack of gun control. That's crazy. Of course. It is. This is a legislative problem, okay, first and foremost. That's it.
But I wanted to give you a statement. It is our hope, in conjunction with these people behind us, that we can give you another statement around 4 o'clock, because I know you have to go back on the air. That is my hope. But I wanted to be fluid with you all, understanding that it's fluid as well with this investigation. I appreciate you being patient with us. Again, it's very active and is ever developing. Every minute is developing on what we're finding.
So let's see what there's. I'm sure there's some more coverage on this. But here's what the president released after today's school shooting. Republicans in Congress must finally say enough is enough and work with Democrats to pass common sense gun safety legislation. We must ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines once again, require safe storage of firearms, enact universal background checks, and end immunity for gun manufacturers. Is correct. It is the correct position. No American will come to terms with that, of course. CNN reports a 16-year-old student at Appalachee High School Center. Mama texts, "I'm sorry I haven't been a perfect daughter. I love you." School should be sued for not having armed security guards to guard the kids. Oh. Yeah, the shooter, as far as details goes, the shooter is 14 years old. School has been open for like 3 fucking days at this point. And this is happening in Georgia, where the Georgia governor, Brian Kemp, signed a bill allowing guns to be carried without a license. So, 2 days into the school year, already a fucking gun, already a mass shooting, a school shooting. Kamala Harris talked about it at the rally.
So before I begin, I do want to say a few words about this tragic shooting that took place.
It just feels so rehearsed, and it feels like we are in this like permanent holding pattern. I'm not going to lie. Like, they're on the right side of this issue unconditionally. Okay. Democrats are on the right side of this issue. Straight up. It's It's the truth. Okay. This is not like this is not an endorsement of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or anything like that, or an endorsement of the Democratic Party. Having said that, however, they are absolutely on the right side of this issue. It's just, that's it. But because it has happened so much and so frequently that, like, this pattern that we keep repeating over and over again comes across scripted and hollow.
This morning in Winder, Georgia, we're still gathering information about what happened, but we know that
it comes across hollow. It comes across rehearsed. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to describe it.
there were multiple fatalities and injuries. With all the students, the teachers, and their families, of course, and we are grateful to the first responders and the law enforcement that were on the scene. But this is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is. We've got to stop it.
Is Kamala promising more gun control? Yeah. I mean, that's the basic Democratic position.
Let's bring in CNN senior national security analyst Juliet Kayyem. She was a former assistant secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. Juliet, thanks for joining us. Multiple law enforcement officials are telling CNN that Appalachee High School had gotten an earlier threat on the phone this morning, warning that there would be shootings at 5 schools and that Appalachee would be first. What more do we know about that?
We don't know much more, and we don't know obviously who the caller was. My suspicion, just based on what happened, is that this was a person who wanted to create more destruction, and also wanted it to be known that it was him, and went on this rampage. The second possible theory is that there's more than one person involved, although the police have not been suggesting that yet, and the fact that the family unification has already occurred suggests that they think it's just him. I know this seems obvious to a lot of people, like, oh, they got, they screwed up, they got a phone call and they didn't close the school. Schools get phone calls like this all the time. It is one of them. That's why I'm very much for prosecuting people who make these kinds of calls, whether often in jest. These kinds of calls are happening all the time. We have to learn what did they think of it? What did they think it was? How often was this school getting them before we can pass judgment on the school district?
We're told that officials are going to brief in a few minutes. We'll obviously bring that to our viewers and listeners live. What are some of the topics you want them to address?
So obviously the access issue, I'm curious about how accessible the school was. What was its risk environment? Had there been violence before? What kind of, it's a high school, what kind of metal detectors and others there were? Obviously the age, Jake, it's 14 years old. I was looking at the statistics. It's not as unusual as we wish. That school shootings occur by 14-year-olds, but a mass shooting like this is very rare. That's a young age. So then the third and important question is access to the gun. Everyone knows Georgia's gun laws are permissive. It's just, this isn't a political commentary. They are exceptionally permissive. And that means that the parents or someone who had the gun made it either available to him or he took it from them. We need to get more aggressive against adults who buy these weapons and make them accessible or allow them to be accessible to a 14-year-old. And I guess the last question, of course, is motive. Was this against a particular person, a classroom? What was his reason for doing it? But you and I have been doing this long enough. Sometimes the motive isn't satisfying. It's just someone who's gets guns and wants to use them in a violent manner, and we can blame mental health or whatever else, but it doesn't really get to why this morning.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, some parts of the country have safe storage laws, meaning that there needs to be a trigger lock or the firearm needs to be stored in some sort of safe so that minors cannot get the gun, or anyone else cannot get the gun. What is your assessment so far, based on the limited information we have, of the initial emergency response?
I thought it was exceptionally quick, at least from what I know now, in terms of the two things we care about. So one is notification to both the students who are in harm's way, but also the outside world. The parents who are going to come rushing to the school seems to have been tested and planned enough that you at least minimize the harm. We're going to get a TikTok on the second question about sort of how did law enforcement do. We're going to get a TikTok of sort of how long it took them to get there relatively soon, and we'd have to see, you know, how large was that gap in terms of both the police coming in and then emergency managers getting and paramedics getting the injured out. There's a lot of injured people, so we don't know what the final count is going to be. But look, this is generation lockdown. These students that we're hearing from knew this drill. They may not have recognized it immediately, and the teachers certainly know what to do. It is a necessary evil given the environment that we're in, but I am curious about sort of that response time, as we always are.
Yeah, we already have a Gen Alpha mass shooter. The child was born in 2010, has spent over 1/3 of their life in a COVID, post-COVID world. Yeah. I mean, people are like, oh, how could this have happened? Like, he's 14 years old. He's so young. And it's like, what do you mean? Open your fucking eyes, dude. Like, this is the most American thing. It is actually shocking when it doesn't happen all the fucking time. We have had, it is so American to do a school shooting. It is so ingrained in our fucking DNA at this point, especially as a consequence of the mass availability of weapons, that we had a fucking trans shooter, okay? Like, do you understand how fucking commonplace it needs to happen? How commonplace of a thing this is, that there is a fucking trans person that did a school shooting? That's how American it is. It's 1% of the population. Everybody gets a piece at this point. I'm honestly surprised there was this long of a gap between school shootings. There wasn't. It's just this one is like something that the media is paying more attention to. And also the gap between school shootings is called summer break. Republicans will say that's never going to happen. Shut the fuck up. So they end up talking about the background of the shooter and claiming that the shooter is trans over and over again. Ridiculous, right? Or the shooter is an undocumented migrant, or whatever the fuck they want to shift the blame over to. Then, if there's no background that they can shift the blame over to, they start talking about how, well, it's a mental health problem. Okay? There's a shit ton of mentally ill people, dude, and all around the world, as a matter of fact. So why the fuck aren't they having the same exact issues? Perhaps it's because there's one significant difference in the United States of America as opposed to all the other developed nations where, they don't have more guns in circulation than there are people in this fucking country. Turns out that might be a big reason. And they say mental health, and they never actually do anything about the mental health problem anyway. It's just the same fucking shifting of the responsibility and shifting of the blame cycle all over again.
Authorities are giving an update on the mass shooting at the high school in Georgia. Let's listen.
And we wanted to come back this afternoon and present you with a little more of a timeline of the events that have taken place here today and what we know up to this point with the investigation. At approximately 10:20 a.m. this morning, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office received alerts about reports of an active shooter and radio traffic from school resource officers concerning the same concern, or having the same concern. Within minutes, law enforcement was on scene, as well as 2 school resource officers assigned here to the school, who immediately encountered the subject with just minutes of this report going out. Once they encountered the subject immediately surrendered to these officers, and he was taken into custody. Additionally, what I want you to know as of now, there are 4 individuals who are deceased from this incident, 9 that have been taken to local hospitals with various injuries. Of those that are deceased, 2 were students and 2 were teachers here at the school. The priority right now for us within this investigation is to gather all the facts, to make sure that we're accurate with it, because this is a murder investigation. As the sheriff mentioned earlier this morning, the shooter is in custody. His name is Colt, that's C-O-L-T, Gray. He is a 14-year-old student here at the school, G-R-A-Y. He is a 14-year-old student here at the high school. Again, he has been taken into custody. He will be charged with murder, and he will be tried as an adult and handled as an adult. We're coordinating these charges and obviously this investigation with District Attorney Brad Smith, who is the District Attorney for the Piedmont Judicial Circuit here. Since earlier this morning we talked with you, and since the incident occurred, numerous interviews have been taking place through our investigation with students, faculty, as well as any other witnesses that we could identify. Law enforcement had a very, very swift response to this incident once the incident was determined that there was a concern here. Those resources, whether it was in that response or throughout this investigation to assist, came obviously from the sheriff's office here, from other local law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement agencies, and the federal law enforcement agencies as well. To include, not to be left out, multiple EMS personnel, multiple fire personnel, and agencies. Those agencies responded here as well today, and I am extremely grateful, as I know the sheriff is, for that quick response and the partnerships of working here together with what all has gone on. Currently, from the investigative perspective, we have crime scene agents and other special agents from the GBI, from close to a dozen of our different work units from across the state that have responded here today to work on this investigation, again, collecting evidence, conducting interviews, and so forth. I do want to pass this along, that if anyone has any information that wants to be passed on concerning this investigation, that they can do that anonymously at our tip line at 1-800-597-TIPS or 1-800-597-8477. They can also report this on by downloading the See Something, Send Something app. That can be done by Android or Apple phones, either one. If they need to report any tips concerning this investigation. Let me close out before I turn this over to the sheriff and let you just remind you that this is still a very active investigation. There is still a lot that is very fluid. There's still a lot of interviews to be conducted that will continue on into the night, as well as crime scene work and collecting and gathering evidence. But what is more important for me to mention here to you is my heartfelt sympathy to the parents, the students that were here today. Regardless of where they were in the school, this has got a great impact on them as well as on this community. My thoughts and prayers, along with everybody standing behind me and every law enforcement agency in this state, and many I will tell you around this country, they are in our thoughts and prayers, and we will continue with that. We ask for your patience as we continue through this, and we'll continue to try to give you as many updates with information as we can to keep you informed. But thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn it over to Bexar County Sheriff Judge Smith. Thank you. Hosey.
Good afternoon. I'm Sheriff Judge Smith of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. I cannot thank the people behind me for the support
bro?
they
You're
give,
an American sheriff, of course.
give this office and give this staff.
It is an inevitability.
This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system. I'm proud of this school system.
The thing is, what are they supposed to
My
do? They
heart
can't
hurts for
fucking,
these kids.
like,
My
I
heart
can't believe I'm
hurts for our
saying this, but it's
community.
not the cops' fault.
But I want to
Okay.
make it very clear that hate
Like, what are they supposed to
not
do?
prevail
Fucking envision a
this
school shooting
county.
happening ahead of time and like apprehend the
I want that to
fucking
be
child
very
on the
clear
way,
and known.
to the
Love will
school? You know
prevail
what I
over
mean?
happened today.
Everyone has a fucking
I assure
gun.
you of that. It is very early as to what happened.
Like, what are they supposed to do? Apprehend thought crimes or some shit? Like, there's not
Governor
really much
Kemp
you can
reached
do.
out to me and has provided me every single resource.
There's not
that
much
he
you can
has
do other than
to
precog.
make sure justice prevails. I don't know why it happened. I may not ever know. We may not ever know. But I ask that you and our community lift up our schools, lift up our public safety, and that, again, we do not let this hateful event prevail as to what
It's
happened
crazy because
today.
in like other normal countries, this is not a defense of police at all, but in other normal countries, it's actually police that are absolutely in favor of like restrictions on weapons. You know, in America, it's the opposite. Cops are also fucking super right wing and consistently advocate for looser gun regulation, which is always odd. Always odd because it's making your job harder, you dumb fuck.
Continue to lift up these families, continue to lift up our students and our kids, and know that love will prevail. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. LaDuff, our school superintendent, to come and speak on behalf of the school.
Good afternoon. I'm Dallas LaDuff. I'm the superintendent of Bexar County School System. I want to thank the Bexar County Sheriff's Office and all of our law enforcement partners for their swift response today, along with that of our staff. I'd also like to thank our community for their response and patience as we work to reunify the students with their families here today and secure the rest of our school campuses. Our schools will be closed for the remainder of this week as we cooperate fully with law enforcement to get answers to the many questions that we all have about this incident here today. But as we are closed, our central offices will remain open, where we will have grief counseling available for our community every day this week and thereafter as we support each other through this terrible event. In closing, I just want to say to our community, as a school system, we are here for you, we support you, and we are ready to get you any support that you may need.
You're shocked that the police
As
didn't
we
kill the
grieve through-
shooter? That's not shocking at all. Most mass shootings literally end with like an unarmed like good guy putting their bodies on the fucking line. Like that's statistically an unlikely scenario, is a mass shooting ending with cops coming and shooting the fucking
Are entitled to an
shooter.
education and want to harm others. To me, it's hateful.
Oftentimes the shooter will just do a mass shooting and then kill
Obviously,
themselves.
the shooter was armed, and our school resource officer engaged him. And the shooter quickly realized that if he did not give up, that it would end with an OIS, or an officer-involved shooting. He gave up, got on the ground, and the deputy took him into custody. Not that I'm
GBI is
aware
the
of.
Georgia
Again, very
Bureau of
early, and We're
Investigations.
still looking into that, whether or not, or how he obtained it and how he got it into school.
Has he been in touch at all with his parents or his family to learn more about what led up to these moments?
We have.
Any information you can share?
No.
What kind of weapon was
It seems like you have a large Hispanic.
A lot of people in the chat will gladly support the death penalty, I guess. Yeah, I mean, look, that's neither here nor there. America has the death penalty. This kid will probably be he's going to be tried as an adult and he'll probably get the death penalty. Will that actually stop more mass shootings from happening? Fuck no. Okay? That's just revenge. That's bloodlust. And it's ironically the same exact bloodlust that we have in every orifice of our goddamn unimaginably violent culture that causes a fucking 14-year-old to engage in this kind of action to begin with, okay? America is a fucking powder keg, okay, waiting to explode. And as a matter of fact, explodes on a regular fucking basis. We're in a death spiral. No one seems to recognize it. And it's always short-term, immediate gratification. We're so fucking primed towards that. It's like, oh yeah, we'll kill this 14-year-old and then, you know, problem solved. It's like, no, dude, that's not going to solve the problem. What will solve the problem is making it harder for people to have weapons, okay? That will solve the problem. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to do it. So we'll just fucking get that immediate gratification from like killing a fucking 14-year-old.
We mentioned that we identified
Yeah, he's
earlier.
violent.
Keep in mind
Yeah,
that
he's evil, okay? Of course. It's still a 14-year-old though. We have to look at how a 14-year-old gets to this point. If you want to actually solve an issue, you have to literally analyze how the fuck did a 14-year-old get to this point? How did this happen? Okay? That's a minor. That's a child.
For now, this is the information that we have. It is an active investigation. I assure you we do plan to come back out here in a couple of hours. Please make sure you're following the GBIX page. That's where we're going to be putting the updates. If there's anything that's new, we'll make sure that we share that information. It's still very early. Investigators have a lot of work to do. We appreciate your patience. Do expect another in-person news conference out here in the next few hours. Monitor the X page, and we will be sure to update you accordingly.
Isn't the owner of the firearm responsible?
You
anyway?
have been
Yes.
listening to.
Yes, his parents will. There was an instance where a minor did this last year or 2 years ago, and yes, their parents were held responsible.
About today's mass shooting
Of course,
at
and they should
Appalachee
be.
High School, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation
I gotta pee.
confirmed that 4 individuals were killed. 2 of them were students, 2 of them were teachers. 9 others were injured, wounded in the shooting, taken to local hospitals. Authorities also say that the gunman was 14 years old, a student at the school. This will be the first and last time I mention his name, Colt Gray, Gray. That individual will be charged as an adult. Let's bring back Juliette Kayyem along with CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell. Josh, a lot of information not provided. We don't know what kind of gun it was. We don't know how many rounds were fired. Tell us what the headlines are beyond the 2 teachers and 2 students killed.
Yeah, well, that was certainly important to learn what the makeup, the attributes of the victims were. But as you mentioned, there's still a lot that we don't know about the actual incident, certainly the motive. And quite frankly, I wasn't expecting at this juncture for authorities to actually come out and start explaining anything that they've gleaned about a motive. Sadly, as you and Juliette and myself, we've covered so many of these, they'll come out with statistics, so to speak, about what transpired. But particularly if you have a suspect who was taken into custody, there's still a prosecution, and so we often see law enforcement hold a lot of information close to the vest because all of this has to hold up in court. They don't want to jeopardize that. As we learned there, this juvenile, this 14-year-old, will be tried as an adult, which in the state of Georgia for offenses, serious offenses like a capital offense involving murder, involving the potential death penalty, those will go to adult court. So we got that detail, but still a lot we don't know about the weapon itself, and you know that's key for me right now is how did a 14-year-old gain access to this firearm. We've seen in a number of instances, such as at Oxford High School, the shooter's parents there were prosecuted for their ability to help him get that firearm. We also saw in
Give him the electric shock penalty over and over and over. Dude, you're talking about a fucking 14-year-old, dog. Like, do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? Do you think that's going to solve anything? Like, I get it. People are emotional about the situation, but like, you understand that like we have so many fucked up sequences of action in full display when you got a 14-year-old that's like doing such a thing. This will now come up in a debate. I hope Kamala takes advantage of it. I mean, come on, dude. That is like such bloodless calculation. Like, that's crazy. Oh, how will this impact the debate is crazy, dude. I know your heart is probably in the right place and you mean like maybe this will move the needle towards like some kind of common sense gun legislation. The entire point of legislation is supposed to be to prevent these sorts of things from happening in the future, right? That's the argument made for the capital penalty, for the capital punishment, for the death penalty. The argument made for the death penalty is it's a deterrence. It'll scare people into it is so that people will be afraid to commit such an atrocity in the future. But ain't no fucking mass shooter gives a shit about being murdered, okay? Most of them killed themselves in the process.
When
he cannot get the death penalty, crimes committed as a minor have been ineligible for the death penalty since 2005. I mean, he's going to be tried as an adult, even though he's a minor in the state of Georgia. And yes, the death penalty would be at play, even if it's unconstitutional. I can't wait. I can't wait for this to be a new decision that the Supreme Court makes that overturns the previous decision, where they move in the direction of like allowing the death penalty for minors who are tried as adults. You know? So that'll be another fun thing to look forward to in the docket.